This is the Dollemore Daily, and I'm Jesse Dollemore.
For a long time, we have absolutely known that Donald Trump is a dangerous demagogue, someone who encourages violence. Even in the 2016 campaign, when he was offering to pay people's legal bills if they committed acts of violence against other people at the rally, namely protesters. Because Donald Trump is so thin-skinned and weak, he can't handle a protest. He cannot maintain if someone is exercising their First Amendment right under the Constitution of the United States of free expression and free speech. Further, we witnessed the insurrection, his incitement, his fomenting of a rebellion against the United States that took the form of an insurrection and an armed attack against the Capitol, attempting to overthrow the United States government by way of overturning a free and fair, settled American election. Violence is the way of Donald Trump. Not personally, because he is a filthy weakling at his core, a draft-dodging coward, a physical coward. And he enlists, as he did in the insurrection, a mob of the uninitiated, low-information rube who are gleeful to be in his shadow. I'm going to read a bit from this article from Right Wing Watch. Again, Right Wing Watch is an activist organization that tracks a number of threats to our republic. Violent threats, threats of misinformation and propaganda and conspiracy and white Christian nationalism. They do a fundamentally important job, especially in today's time of unique dangers. If you have a few dollars to throw their way relative to their funding and to further their mission, I would encourage you to do so. There will be a link below. But I'm going to read from this article about this video is about two different things. It's about a failure on the part of mainstream media, the New York Times specifically, but also it is about the danger that we face that is unique to this election cycle, because Donald Trump has enlisted, is surrounding himself with a bunch of radicals who are furthering the lies and the messaging online in their meme army or whatever. And the campaign is giving them talking points, but they are also giving these maniacs, these violent messengers, access to Donald Trump himself. Here's the article from Right Wing Watch. Meet Brenden Dilley, the violence-hungry MAGA cultist behind Trump's troll army. Last month, the New York Times profiled what it called the troll army that is attacking former President Trump's enemies on social media as part of the campaign to get him elected to the White House in 2024. The leading figure behind this army is MAGA broadcaster. Well, that is a generous description of who this dipshit is. The leading figure, once again, behind this army is MAGA broadcaster and life coach. You get that? He's a MAGA broadcaster and a life coach. Brenden Dilley, whose cultish devotion to Trump has gained him direct access not only to the Trump campaign, but to the candidate himself. This is from the New York Times. And then after this brief couple of paragraphs from the New York Times, I'm gonna talk about exactly their failure here. Today, Mr. Dilley, again, this is from the New York Times. Today, Mr. Dilley, who now lives north of Atlanta, says he has visited Mr. Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort 3 times in the past year. He and his team have posted numerous photos of themselves posing with Mr. Trump, spending time with his advisors and attending events at Trump properties. During an episode of his show just before Thanksgiving, Mr. Dilley claimed to be texting one of those advisors, asking if he could join the former president at a football game at the University of South Carolina. That weekend, he and his wife were photographed by Mr. Miller in the governor's box at the Williams-Brice Stadium in Columbia, South Carolina, along with Donald Trump. A video that Mr. Dilley's wife, Rihanna, shot of Mr. Trump walking on the field at halftime was subsequently viewed millions of times online and reposted by former president on Truth Social. Like many other influencers, Mr. Dilley appears to receive talking points from the campaign. He also claims more exclusive access, describing phone calls from advisors to Mr. Trump to discuss memes his team is producing and whether they strike the desired tone. Now, this is problematic for many reasons. One is direct access to people who are violent in their rhetoric. And I don't just mean we got to fight in nebulous terms that people can argue one way or the other. I'm talking about straight up violent rhetoric about murdering activists and Democrats. You're going to hear that in a video clip of Brenden Dilley in just a minute. But I want to talk about the failure of the New York Times here. I want to talk about the failure of the mainstream media at large and in general relative to topics like this. This is why independent media, what I do, what others in my space do, is so important. Because I'm calling out Brenden Dilley for what he does. I am highlighting what he does. The New York Times does an entire spread about this and doesn't mention the violence and the extremism one time. If you look up Second Amendment, if you look up shooting, if you look up guns, if you look up violence, if any of it does not appear in that New York Times article. All they talk about is his access and closeness and proximity to Donald Trump. That's a failure. There's a direct line between Donald Trump and these violent radicals, and the New York Times failed to point it out. They didn't do even a cursory glance at the evidence when they wrote this article. Continuing on with the Right Wing Watch. Right Wing Watch has been covering Dilley since 2018, and given that he has now established such close ties with Trump's campaign, it is even more important to expose how overtly racist, unapologetically misogynistic, and gleefully amoral he is. So eager for bloodshed is Dilley that in 2020, amid protests over the killing of George Floyd, he warned that he and millions of other gun-toting Americans were just waiting until Trump, quote, gives us the green light to take to the streets and start murdering protesters. Here is one of many, many alarming extremist clips from this idiot who is directly connected to Donald Trump's campaign and Donald Trump himself. Watch this.
So you better pray to God, and I mean this literally, or whoever the fuck it is you pray to, okay, that Donald J. Trump, President of the United States, and Attorney General Barr clean this up lawfully. Because if for any reason the President of the United States feels that it's not getting done the way it should and decides to put out the tweet that says, my fellow Americans, my fellow 2A loving Americans, it's time to take up arms against these assholes, you are all fucked in under an hour. Under 1 hour, you're done. Every one of you. We're all just at home, hanging out, or we're on vacation like me right now, watching you idiots behave the way you do, waiting for that one tweet, that one emergency text message from the fucking President of the United States that gives us the green light to finish this entire thing in under an hour. It will not be law enforcement. It will not be one of these slow, bureaucratic justice system wheels of justice turning. It'll be a group of people you didn't even know fucking existed because we were at our houses, we got off work, we were with our families, but we were ready for that call. And if that call ever does come, you will be fucked 7 ways from Sunday.
That is who Donald Trump chooses to have be surrogates of the campaign. That is who Donald Trump chooses to be surrounded by. Can you imagine if Joe Biden was connected to someone, the campaign was connected to someone that was meeting with Joe Biden who was saying, I'm ready to take my gun and murder Republicans? They would lose their minds. They would not be able to handle it, and justifiably so. But because hypocrisy is the new world order in the Republican Party, or not new, but it is the world order. They don't care. Just as Dilley talks about, facts don't matter. It doesn't matter if what he says is true, as long as it hurts the Democrats. We are at a crossroads in America. The impending collapse of American democracy is upon us. This election is, without equivocation, without hyperbole, the most important election in the history of the American Republic. You need to make sure that you vote, that you get your neighbors, your friends, your acquaintances, your family to vote, to get involved for the sake of the future of your families. And again, it's not exaggeration, it's fact. If you appreciate what I do, the research, the take, the manner, whatever, please consider supporting and help produce this work. Click the join button below for $1.99. You can become a channel member. Hit the super thanks button, or you can go over to patreon.com/IDoubtItPodcast. All those are great ways. Follow me on social media. I am at Dollemore on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, Facebook, all of them at Dollemore. I'd love to see you there. Be genuine. Take care of one another.